Survivors! ARK 1 is going to die when ARK 2 releases, yet ARK 2 is going to fail because of third person and Souls-like combat. These are the things that I've been hearing, but both can't be true, can they? Surely one negates the other. I wanted to discuss and share my personal thoughts on why I believe ARK 1 won't die and ARK 2 won't fail. Now, these are my personal opinions. I don't claim to be right or wrong. So let's take a look at ARK 2 first. It's pretty clear within the community, I feel, that the big pointer towards ARK 2 failing is the introduction of third person only and the Souls-like combat. This is a huge move away from what many adore about ARK 1. So it makes sense that many are put off, particularly if they don't like those style of games. Whilst many may feel that cross-platform modding that's being introduced to ARK 2 will resolve the problem around third person, this will not be the case for official servers. And this is the area that may not do as well within the current ARK community compared to private servers and single player. What I feel is missing here is the wider picture. When I see comments about ARK 2 is going to fail because of third person and Souls-like combat, I feel this is coming from a purely ARK player perspective, which is looking at the players being divided and only a certain portion of the community moving on to ARK 2, and therefore potentially ARK 2 having a lower player base than ARK 1 did. This in my mind, although could potentially happen, is a rather biased perspective. The wider picture brings in potentially hundreds of thousands of other gamers out there that thoroughly enjoy third-person games and Souls-like combat games. Think about all the gamers that love Assassin's Creed, Batman Arkham games, Dark Souls, all of those style of games that have similar mechanics that we're expecting to be in ARK 2 in some shape or form. Those gamers may not have been particularly interested in ARK 1 because of what that style of game was like, but they could potentially become interested in ARK 2 because of those mechanics. And therefore, I personally feel that ARK 2 could bring in an entirely new player base on top of all of those moving from ARK 1 to ARK 2. This is why I find it hard to believe that ARK 2 is going to fail, because of what we already know of the game so far, which, to be honest, is quite small without that gameplay. And I think it has the opportunity to really bring in a whole load of new survivors that don't have experience of ARK 1. And that is potentially why ARK 2 won't necessarily die or fail, because it's being looked at mostly from an ARK 1 player's perspective. There is also the concern that ARK 2 is going to be more focused on being story driven, which might potentially restrict players from being able to do what they want like they can in ARK 1. But without knowing too much about the game yet, about the gameplay, it's difficult to determine what that actually means until we actually get to see that elusive gameplay. And the final observation regarding ARK 2 failing is the history with the development of ARK 1. Based on how it's been developed, the constant missed deadlines, all of that stuff. Now, I'm very optimistic about this and about Studio Wildcard overall. There have been many improvements with Wildcard over the years, particularly with communication within the community. Maybe not so much on release dates being hit, because they are still missing those even with ARK 2. But Wildcard, by the time ARK 2 releases, will have had at least 8 years experience to learn from. Now, call me a fool.
Shut up, fool!
But I think that's going to result in a improved, hopefully a much improved development of ARK 2. At least I really hope so. Probably not on the release date side of things, because we can see that that's still the same as it was before. There is also the fact that ARK 2 is once again going to be an early access game, which not all gamers really prefer to buy into. So that is going to hold some people back from potentially moving from ARK 1 onto ARK 2 based on ARK 1's history, and also it may hold back bringing in new gamers with ARK 2 being early access. So as we now turn our sights to ARK 1, people have been saying that ARK 1 is dying or will die or has died for years now, and that is no exaggeration. And yet ARK 1 is still pulling in similar numbers to what it's been pulling in over the last 7 years, at least on the Steam platform. There's the usual big increases when DLCs drop, the smaller increases when seasonal events happen like Fear Evolved, and then after all of those there's the usual drop right back down to the original numbers once players get over the hype of new content. But overall ARK has had very consistent numbers, roughly averaging around 45,000 players. So this does not indicate that a game is dying or has been dying. So unless I'm mistaken, I don't think Wildcard have actually given really any details about what ARK 2 releasing means for ARK 1 in terms of going forwards and in terms of support, particularly for official servers. What we do know is that seasonal events like Fear Evolved are going to be ending with Winter Wonderland this year. The assets are being added to all of the games on all platforms. But there are still going to be many ARK players that will stick with ARK 1 even if they do move on to ARK 2. Players will have years of content on ARK 1, whether it's on single player, official servers, private servers, whatever. They will have years of content that they're not necessarily going to want to give up. Not to mention, the entire PlayStation player base will have no choice but to either stick with ARK 1 or to give up entirely and move on, at least until ARK 2 comes to that platform. But also on top of that, what we currently know, or we've currently I think been told, is that ARK 2 is going to be for next gen consoles, which means PlayStation 4 and Xbox One may not necessarily be able to play ARK 2. So unless they upgrade to newer consoles, that means they're also going to be in the same position as PlayStation, where they won't have any choice but to either stick with ARK 1 or give up entirely and leave. So there is still going to be a huge player base for ARK 1, because not everybody is going to be able to move over to ARK 2. Not everybody is going to even have a choice of moving over to ARK 2 without buying new consoles. And there's probably going to be many people that will play both ARK 1 and ARK 2. Of course, it's likely to at some point die, because that would be a natural progression once a sequel comes out. But I strongly believe, I have a firm, strong belief that ARK 1 is going to continue for several years to come. Yes, player numbers will probably drop when ARK 2 comes out, but I think there is still life in it for several more years. I don't think it's going to die as soon as ARK 2 releases. I don't think it's going to be a very quick death. I think it will be very slow, but it will still stay healthy for a couple of years. And don't forget, there is the Survival of the Fittest coming as well. It's supposed to be coming in December. This could potentially bring people back, or new people, to ARK Survival Evolved as well. It could have a stepping stone effect to bring people into the actual ARK Survival Evolved game. So survivors, thanks for listening to my thoughts and opinions on this. This is something that's been talked about so much in the community over the past, well, probably last couple of years since we found out about ARK 2. It is a very strong subject. There are a lot of beliefs that ARK 1 will die and ARK 2 will fail for many reasons. Something that I personally don't share myself. So drop me a comment, let me know what you think about this. Do you think ARK 1's gonna die? Do you think ARK 2's gonna fail? And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to keep up with the ARK news. Thanks for watching, survivors, and I'll see you next time.